Now, you would have thought that with a bad bushfire season predicted to be coming up, the federal and the Queensland government would be doing everything within their power to be prepared. Well, think again. On Tuesday, the first National Bushfire Preparedness Summit was held in Canberra. And despite the summit hosting 250 attendees, invitations were not extended to volunteer service bosses in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Western Australia or Tasmania. Can you believe it? Joining me is one of the men who should have been there, Ben Heilbronn, a representative from the South Coast Division of Queensland's Rural Fire Service. Ben, thank you very much for your time and for joining me tonight. Thanks for all you have done and will do to keep my home state safe. Tell us what this event was all about and why it was so important for volunteer firefighters to attend.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. Look, there are over 200,000 volunteer firefighters in Australia, and they are represented through associations. Now, the federal summit that was brought together by Senator Mr Watt was to bring forward a preparation for the fire seasons ahead and strategise about how we can manage that at both a state and a federal level. Now, they brought forward 250 participants to participate in that summit, all the way down to grocers. So how would grocers be impacted if fire was to cut roads and do those sorts of things? Yet, in the midst of those invitations, the volunteers were omitted from that. So the voice of the volunteers is through the associations. So neither anyone from the CFA, RFS, Western Australia, CFS out of South Australia, or the RFBAQ out of Queensland were able to represent their members and their volunteers at that summit. Now, during that summit, it was decided that one of the strategies maybe going forward for looking after and preventing and a preparedness for the season ahead was to potentially have paid seasonal contract workers for the fire service. Now, this is a model that Canada runs and as parts of America run. And between May and August this year, we sent thousands of volunteers from Australia to support those countries in their model where they have paid seasonal firefighting staff. So we've 200,000 strong members in Australia, and it's a model that's worked for 100 years. If it's not broke, we don't need to reinvent it. We need to have more support for our volunteers, and they need to be supported at the highest levels of federal government and state governments. The model where we see people vying and can potentially, the same people on the same fire ground were in the brigade last week, but now the seasonal contract started and my brother next to me is getting paid, but a week or two ago we were fighting the same fires. We're now on the same fire here today and you're going to be paid for your time, yet I'm not. So it's quite a divisive move, and we're of the opinion that the model that we have has worked effectively for over 100 years with volunteers, but we need more support, more encouragement, more ability to retain and draw towards volunteering new firefighters for the future.
It seems pretty divisive to have two standards of people working to keep us safe during a bushfire, but it's also an enormous discourtesy to refuse to have the people who have, as you say, protected Australians for 100 years around the table as we prepare for the season ahead. We hear across a number of states about there being a lack of volunteers. Surely it would be prudent then to, in the interest of attracting more of them, engage with those that are currently serving as volunteers for the way forward.
Look, certainly Queensland hasn't been alone in the reductions we've seen in volunteers, firefighters over the last few years. We've gone from 36,000 in the 2019 fire season down to about 28,000 now. And we've lost 10,000 members. We've attracted and retained a further 2. But members are leaving because they don't feel appreciated. They don't feel that they're being heard. They don't feel that their time is being valued. And there are more and more imposts from government around red tape and bureaucratic processes that actually prevent them or stop them or impede them helping their community. Now, the reason people volunteer and join a rural fire brigade is to give back to their community. And our volunteer fire brigades don't just respond to fire. They're there when a storm comes through. They're there when a flood matter comes through. They're continually working and supporting their community in terms of education, fates, fundraisers, parking, and doing all sorts of things as engaged in their community with many, many community events. Now, it shouldn't be a hard thing to attract people. It's a harder thing to retain them when they find out that their rural fire service experience is not what they anticipated through bureaucratic and government red tape.
Well, sounds like a little bit of respect would go an awfully long way. Ben Heilbronn, thank you very much for your time tonight.